All right, Gina, here we are again, another Back Porch Chats podcast.
Hi, Vince. I'm not going to say good morning, and
Yeah,
I'm not
no.
going to say good afternoon. I might say that you're a stud muffin because you paid me.
Well, thank you. All compliments greatly appreciated.
Yes.
Day before yesterday, kind of timing this a little bit, then there was an announcement that 100,000 people have died from drug overdoses.
No, I did not. Well, no. I was thinking we were at a meeting. I should have heard that, but no, that was the day before yesterday.
Yeah,
So
100.
yeah.
And what I really love to think about that is that back down here in Alabama, we love our SEC football.
Mm-hmm.
In a football stadium, it's about 100,000
Oh wow.
people. So
Yeah, that's a
that's like
lot.
if you look at a football stadium, that's
Mm-hmm.
how. And then you add to that there's family members that have. So let's say each one of those overdoses affects 10 more people. That's 1 million people
Right.
that
Right.
this.
Yeah.
And I
That has
know in
been
my
affected.
years in AA that in 12-step program, my years in 12-step program, I have seen the rooms get younger and
Mm-hmm.
younger. It used to be a bunch of 40-year-old, 60-year-old men and stuff in the room smoking cigarettes back when I got started. And now it's just young and young. And the other thing that you and I have found out with this, the opioid overdoses and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of stuff, that there's a lot of suicide. I firmly believe a lot of these overdoses and stuff are just slow suicides. People commit that they won't call it a suicide for various reasons, but it is, the drugs that are out there today are not the same one that were there 27 years ago.
Absolutely not. In fact, our guest today is going to be talking about that.
That's right.
Yeah, and I did a little research before. When I found out we were getting her on, and I was very hesitant. I come from California. Legalized marijuana there. It was, I think, the third or second state. Colorado was the first, and I have written a lot of blogs for online doctors because of you originally needed a license, and a lot of blogs about for the dispensaries. And I was pretty open to the idea, and in fact, in California I smoked from time to time, and I left California about 10 years ago knowing that I would probably never smoke again. Was perfectly fine with it, but I'm pretty open to it. So when I started doing the research and started hearing about dabbing, I said, okay, now I need to know more, because I might not be quite as open as I was before.
Well, and I've been in these rooms 27 years. I've worked around and I hanged it, so I'm pretty close to the drug environment out there. But I didn't even know about dabbing.
No,
This stuff
no.
changes all the day. I mean, the other day I kept coming home here, and I thought we had a skunk problem. I'm sitting around and I'm saying, Gina, we got a skunk problem. Well, come to find out, somebody in the neighborhood is smoking something called skunk weed.
Yeah, I said, babe, that's not skunk, that's a weed. Yeah. He was like, what?
So even if you're around this and working with people, it's changing. I know we're kind of moving on, but the marijuana that's out there today, it's not your grandmother's marijuana from the 70s.
No, no.
So get into our guest.
I'm going to
shut up,
because I am so excited. Our guest today is Laura Stack. She's a best-selling author of 8 books on productivity, including the one I have in my Audible library. I did not know that. I saw the cover and I go, I got that book. I might have a copy at my mom's house as well. So yeah, I'm really excited. Can you hear the anxiety, the nervousness? Yeah. Anyway, she spent 30 years as a keynote speaker. She was best known in the business world as the Productivity Pro. On November 20th, 2019, her 19-year-old son, Johnny, died by suicide after becoming psychotic from dabbing in high-THC marijuana concentrates. I did not know that was possible. That was one of my hesitations. Laura responded by forming the nonprofit Johnny's Ambassadors to educate parents and teens about the dangers of today's high-THC marijuana on adolescent brain development, mental illness, and suicide. Her platform now brings education awareness and prevention curriculum to parents, drug prevention conferences, community groups, and schools to stop marijuana use. Her new book, this is a new one, The Dangerous Truth About Today's Marijuana. Johnny Stack's life and death story shares Johnny's warning and addresses the research and problems with dabbing. Had no clue what dabbing was. Laura is determined to get teens to stop dabbing. That's hashtag stop dabbing. So you can go there to get more information, as well as what Laura will share with you today. Hey, Laura.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that kind introduction, Gina.
Well, thank you. I was really excited. Just like now I'm in awe. When I found out I had the book, I kept looking, going, I have that book.
Thank you so much. Yes, I wrote 8 books before Johnny died. And when he passed, it will be 2 days from now, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was right around the holidays, right before Thanksgiving, just like this. And obviously the holidays were awful. And then we scattered his ashes in Maui, which was his favorite place on earth, in February, which would have been his birthday. And then COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So I had many months of grieving to be with my thoughts and my writing. And being a writer, I did what came naturally for me. And the way I grieve is I write. And so I sat down and I wrote 300 pages about Johnny's life. And there are 176 scientific citations in there because people don't understand the research. There's a lot of false narrative out there. And we have a scientific advisory board for our 501c3. And so in cooperation with them, we wrote the book and formed our nonprofit, Johnny's Ambassador. So now we are out educating about today's marijuana, which people do not understand. If you grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, if you're older than 25 years old, you probably have no idea about any of these concentrates. And if you've not been on a field trip to a dispensary in several years, you will be shocked what you see there. And it's not flower, it's not grass, it's not weed, it's all concentrate.
And I think what's important to note here, if you don't mind, is that this disease is no respecter of class or money or education or whatever. Here you are, a highly successful woman in a lot of ways, have done a lot of stuff, had the recognition and stuff in your field as an author, and helped a lot of people in that area. But yet it affects us all.
Yeah. And Vince and I are both agreed. Agreed. We both have degrees, and we didn't care. We still got into the mess ourselves. We're both recovered, and
it doesn't have any boundaries. Good kids make bad choices. When you think of a drug addict, a lot of people think of maybe it was someone with a disadvantaged childhood. Maybe it's someone who's experiencing homelessness. Maybe it's someone who's in trouble with the law. My son we live in a beautiful suburb in South Denver. We're a Christian family. He loved Jesus. We went to church. He taught Sunday school with us for many years, 4-year-old. He loved to serve. He had a heart for the homeless. He was incredibly intelligent, brilliant. In fact, got a perfect SAT score, 800 out of 800 in math, held a 4.2 GPA all throughout high school. Literally, if it can happen to us, it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter socioeconomic status, gender, race. Anyone's child can be affected by drug addiction, and that's
what I'm seeing also in the rooms. We talked earlier, the rooms are getting younger and younger, but I'm also seeing that there are women in their 30s and 40s who have gone into the hospital for a procedure or whatever and have been prescribed, the various drugs, Percocets and stuff like that. And we're just in a little bit, because of the intensity of that drug, they get hooked within
very
just
quickly
a little bit. And they're good people. They're not out on the streets and stuff.
Yeah. Well, just because there aren't cannabinoid 1, CB1 receptors in your brainstem, so marijuana isn't going to stop your breathing. And so, in the 100,000 people that you mentioned, you can't directly die from using marijuana, but you can die from becoming psychotic, from becoming bipolar, dying by suicide, dying from being in car crashes, being high. dying from acute intoxication, something called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which one of our medical doctors on our board sees every day in her role as an ER physician, which is violent vomiting. They call it scromiting. You're screaming and vomiting at the same time.
Wow.
And it can't be stopped unless the weed is withdrawn.
Mm-hmm.
And people die from that, from dehydration, from failure of, it's usually acute renal failure, from a lack of hydration. So there definitely are deaths that occur from marijuana, but a lot of people like to say, oh, well, you can't die from it just because it doesn't stop your breathing. Doesn't mean that those people should not be counted in those 100,000 deaths. There are far more than that.
Yeah.
When you see all of the people who have been impacted by marijuana.
And I think this is really important, a great place to put in here, because now my skepticism at this point would be, but really marijuana, how's it going to do that? And then when I discovered what dabbing was, I started thinking differently. So could you talk about what it is for people who don't know?
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not a prude. I mean, I used marijuana when I was in high school. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't use it again after high school, but I grew up in the 80s and the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s until the year 2015. Marijuana was quite benign. It was quite low potency. We used to take a paper and put some weed in it and roll it up, right? You'd smoke a joint, you'd pass it around, everybody'd feel happy and love. And back then, the content of the marijuana was 2% tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, which is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana that makes you high. And if you had really good weed, not ditch weed, you could get 5% THC, and that would blow your mind. Today, what they do, and a lot of people don't understand that the weed that's used today is not natural in two senses. One, the botanists got involved and they bred marijuana for higher and higher and higher THC content. So one grower, for example, now has created a 40% THC strain of marijuana. And the botanists said that that was impossible, that there never would be a strain to hold a 40% THC, but indeed it now does. And then secondly, what they started to do with this marijuana was get the chemists involved, and the chemists figure out, hey, we can take these trichomes on the bud of the plant where just the THC is held, and we can extract that trichome by pouring a solvent through the plant. So if you take the plant and you pour butane through it, or ethanol or propane, different solvents, they break those trichomes off the bud, and that THC chemical by itself, now with the solvent, can be filtered into a tray, and they throw the plant away. So these concentrates, these designer marijuana products that have been created today are not natural. They do not come out of nature with 100% pure THC. So there is very fancy equipment. Some people try to do it at home and blow their homes up, but this is done in dispensaries, Gina. This is legal. It is unregulated. There are no caps. There is no testing for efficacy, for safety. It says so right on the back of their products. And then they turn these extracts into different types based on what they look like, their consistencies. So crumble looks like a cookie. Shatter looks like it will drop if you break it. Wax looks like beeswax. There's live resin that's pressed in heat. There's bubble hash. There's crystal, which looks like crack. In the same way you would take cocaine and make crack, you can make THC crystal, which is used in the same device as smokable cocaine. There's sugar. There's every single product then is more distilled, more concentrated into distillates, for example, which can be put into an e-cigarette and vaped, can be 95%. One manufacturer has now claimed he has a 100% pure THC cartridge for an e-cigarette. So instead of the 2 to 5%, right, in smoking one joint today of a potent THC content of flower with combustion, you might be looking at 25 milligrams for an entire joint. Whereas if you have a gram of shatter that is 80%, right, and maybe it has 8 servings, one dab, which is just a teeny, that's why they call them dabs, is 100 milligrams. So we're talking really potent, really high, really fast, just sky high potency levels.
I'll tell you, I have a friend who smoked marijuana in the 60s and 70s and,
yes,
and 80s and stuff. And he went out to Colorado, and while he was out there, he was saying, well, I'm going to see what this is all about. So he said, give me a joint of your mildest stuff. So they gave him a joint. He had a friend with him. They smoked a half a joint. So we're looking at a quarter of a joint. And he said, Vincent, I got so high. I was sitting in a Barco lounger. He said, I was so high, I could not operate the Barco lounger.
I have a girlfriend who's 51 who came here to Colorado. This has been 2 years now, to have lunch, went with a mutual friend of ours, had lunch, had never heard of a dab pen. My friend, our mutual friend, said, here, take a hit. She took 2 hits off of her 90% THC dab pen and was in the mental hospital hallucinating for 2 weeks. She thought that her caretakers were shapeshifters. So this concentrate is not, it is literally a different drug. In the Netherlands, for example, it's illegal to have anything over 15%. It is considered a narcotic. And it's a hard drug in the same class as heroin or opioids. And it is, in my mind, something that I regret. When my son told me at 14 years old that he was at a party and his friend's brother was 18, which in Colorado means you can lie to your pot shop doc, as we call them. They charge them several $100s. You go in, you say you have a migraine or a backache or make up something. You get your shiny little med card from the pot shop doc and you go to the dispensary and you can legally buy shatter, wax, dabs of any potency. There is no regulation. There is no cap on the potency. And then you go and give it to your younger brother, who gives it to my son at a party, and they all just want to try to get high. And so I think it's kind of a big misnomer that many people think, oh, you know, poor kids, they're mentally ill, they're depressed, they're anxious, when in fact the science shows different. That they become anxious and depressed and get mentally ill when they use these products. And the reason we talk about youth is because of their brain formation. Now, it's legal at 21 to use recreationally, but it really should be 25 because that's the age in which the brain is still forming. And THC in the developing mind is incredibly harmful. MRI studies show that there is a thinning of the prefrontal cortex in adolescents who use marijuana. Depending upon how many times they use, their prefrontal cortex is thinner and it doesn't grow back. It is literally damaging their brains. It is brain damage. So at Johnny's Ambassadors Youth Marijuana Prevention, we are specifically focused on teaching the science, the neurology, about how the brain forms and what happens at this young age when these very high potency THC molecules get into that brain, and how it causes, in my son's case, psychosis. After 5 years, he thought the mob was after him. He thought the university was an FBI base. He thought everybody knew everything about him. And he told me I was in on it. Now, we're talking about a brilliant child who was normal in every way. He had no physical problems, no mental health issues. We do not have psychosis in our family. In fact, he was tested for the genomine. We were looking at what medication might be good for him several years after using marijuana. And he had no genes for any of the schizophrenia or any of the mental illnesses, such as bipolar. But he became mentally ill and had a psychotic break at the age of 19 after dabbing marijuana. And his warning to us 3 days before he died in our kitchen, he said, I just want you to know that you were right. You told me that marijuana would hurt my mind, and it has ruined my brain and my life. And I'm really sorry. And I love you. And 3 days later, he killed himself.
Yeah.
Mm. I need a minute, but I mean, we'll keep going. I just have to stop a minute.
Yeah, it's very difficult to comprehend that in his journals that we didn't even know he was writing when he died, and we recovered his journal, and he's writing in there that the mob is after me. And we live in South Denver in a suburb called Highlands Ranch. There's no mob here. He thought his dorm room was bugged and that his phone was bugged. And the day he died, he got his oil changed in his car. He went to a doctor's appointment. He bought Krispy Kreme donuts. It was otherwise a normal day. And he saw on his car odometer, he sent out a Snapchat at 10:15 p.m. of a photo of his odometer, and it read 133661. And the experts who are involved in his story believe that he must have had an acute psychotic break at that point, because he typed, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And for one extreme to exist, there must be the opposing. Who knows what that means? Who knows what he was thinking? It was clearly the psychotic ramblings of a very sick young man who had become mentally ill from using these products of his own admission. And just like any other parent, I mean, we did not allow these substances in our home. We did not provide them. We did not condone them. We did everything anyone here would do. You'd have to read all 300 pages. We spent a fortune trying to help him. Doctors and treatments and programs and mental hospital stays and very expensive brain treatments. At a last ditch effort, he said his brain was green poo.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone is in addiction, he twice recovered and stopped using marijuana and recovered twice.
Right.
And he could have been okay. But after several months, he would start again. And it was, that's addiction.
Yeah.
And I couldn't chain myself to him 24/7. I threatened him that I would duct tape him to a wall. But the diagnosis from his mental hospital was THC abuse severe. That's it. There's no fentanyl. It's not mixed. It's not from the street. It's bought legally. He got himself a med card when he was 18.
Yeah.
And he started selling it. And I know that because we got into his phone after he died. And I saw the Snapchat photos of him selling it, sadly, to the younger kids, just like he was when he was 14.
Laura, in my working with the addicts, I see this over and over again. There's much more of of getting better, and they get a little bit better, and then they relapse, and then they realize the consequences, and they get a little sick of it, and they'll get a little bit recovery, and they'll get better for a while, and then they relapse. But if there's a cycle, there seems to be this cycle of them going up and up, and little by little, each relapse brings them down, but the next recovery kind of helps them. And sometimes the level of what the younger people are dealing with today, it seems to take that more than just to be able to completely be absent and walk away. And
it's really the potency. It's the trifecta that science has shown now of high potency, high frequency, and youth. That is the danger.
Yes.
So I don't judge people. Look, I mean, I met a mother here in Colorado whose child has a severe seizure disorder. I'm talking hundreds of seizures, right, a day. And she gives him a little bit of THC, never smoked, never vaped, never dabbed, right? We're talking a very small amount of oil. And it reduces his seizures to a couple times a day. So would I ever want to deny that mother the ability to give that to her child? Of course not, right? That's one end of the spectrum. And there are 170 children in Colorado under the age of 18 who use marijuana for that purpose. The other end of the spectrum are the 4,000 18-year-olds in Colorado who suddenly at year 17, 364 days, developed a debilitating and chronic condition. No, they are using it to get high. So we have to really be careful when we're talking about medicinal use, because there are FDA approved versions of cannabis derived products for very rare seizure disorders, for example. So I'm not saying that there's never going to be a use for it or that there's never any efficacy for cancer or anorexia, right? I mean, serious things. But what we're talking about is a child being able to go to a criminal doctor who charges $500 to issue them a med card, and they have nothing wrong with them. They just want to use it as a party drug. In Colorado, you can't get alcohol easily. They are really strict on carding. You can't get tobacco till you're 21, but you can get marijuana in 5 minutes in any of our high schools here. And 1 in 10 of our middle schoolers is using. And in Colorado, suicide is the #1 cause of death, ages 15 through 19. And guess what's in their toxicology reports? 51% of them have THC, not alcohol.
Right.
It's THC.
The one thing that's stuck with me since you described what it looked like is their marketing directly to children.
Oh, completely.
It looks like medicine, marijuana that looks like cookies and shattered glass.
Right. Food, beverages. This is not medicine, right? We don't eat medicine in chips. We don't eat medicine and take baths with it. There are tampons that the girls here use with THC. The boys use suppositories.
You've got to be kidding me. I'm sorry.
Oh no. Any orifice you can put THC in.
It shocks this old man. That's hard. I'm sorry.
Vince, you need to go to a dispensary and see. I go every 6 months and see what's new. Right. The new pills, the new drops that you put into any beverage, every edible you can possibly imagine, any orifice you can imagine. There are inhalers that you use to breathe in. There's nose drops, eye drops, anything you can think of to get high exists. And it's all because it's an addiction for profit industry. Listen to this. 4% of the users in Colorado account for 65% of the purchases. 4% account for 65%. Guess what age group? 18 through 24. Guess what that means? They have to addict them early. Addiction is an adolescent onset disease. They literally do not care about the 85-year-old granny who eats her gummy every day because she has arthritis. They do not care. They are targeting the youth. They are after them big time. I have a wonderful collection of marketing that is done directly at teens to make it look sexy and hip and fun. And it's a running false narrative about how harmless it is and safe and God's gift, and it's natural, and it's anything but natural. Everything's sold in stores. None of it comes out of the ground. And the stuff that still is sold as flour, even that is potent. It's been messed with. It is not genetically the way that it was, thousands of years ago that we've been using it. Mm-hmm. So you get some chemists involved and some botanists, and unfortunately, it's completely unregulated, which is why we led a charge in Colorado, and we are very proud to have passed Colorado House Bill 1317, regulating marijuana concentrates. And I am the proud owner of the pen that Governor Polis used to sign that legislation.
For you.
Wow.
Putting up guardrails that now make it much harder for 18 to 20-year-olds to get marijuana. But our message to them is delay, delay, delay. Wait until your brain is formed 25, if you have to use it because you're so curious. Guys, 28 and 30 seems like a long time, but you will do your brain. You only get one brain. And if you mess with it, it will not change. It's memory loss, it's IQ points, it's amotivational syndrome, laziness, lower outcomes in life, causes paranoia, can cause mental illness, a 5-fold increase in psychosis, a 7-fold increase in suicide. These are all scientific studies, peer-reviewed, science-based evidence research. The marijuana industry, there are zero studies to show that any of these high potency products have any benefit at all. Zero. There are none. They like to do their own like surveys, but they're not peer reviewed and they're not scientific. And so far, we have seen no benefit in any of these high potency products. They are just another drug, and it's not like it used to be.
You know, it's so crazy. I'm sorry. It's so you can get gas station CBD, and people think, you know, it's doing me good. It's doing me good. But the reality is that concentrate is so low, it's not doing anything. You know,
well, and a lot of them has been tested, and there's not even any CBD in it. I mean, CBD is actually, it's not regulated, but even more scary, hemp, which is legal in the 2018 Farm Bill, there is way too much of an oversupply of hemp and CBD. So guess what the chemists did? They figured out how to close the ring on one of the molecules, and now they can turn CBD into Delta 8 instead of Delta 9, tetrahydrocannabinol. And guess what? It's psychoactive. Delta 8, Delta 10, THCO, THCA. You think we had a big problem just with weed? There are all kinds of now, because it's legal, because it's hemp derived, chemically converting CBD into Delta 8 and calling it a tobacco product, selling it in the smoke shops and gas stations. I have a photo from Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia, with these Delta 8 gummies hanging in a gas station. And our 18-year-olds are getting hold of them, and they are psychoactive. Mm-hmm. Aren't they clever? Now they can figure out how to turn CBD into something that makes you high.
You know, Laura, here I am. I am a parent of a kid that is doing this. We all know that this addiction cycle stuff and that we get involved in is cunning, and it's baffling, and it's powerful, and it's overwhelming. And I won't help. How can I get the information or whatever it is that I need to do to start being able to handle this, you know, because ambivalence towards getting treatment is just part of this disease. Most of the addicts and stuff out are ambivalent to getting help. So, and I know you're a real big one because I've been on your website. So I'm kind of leading you into that. Where can people out here find the help and get what they need?
Since Johnny died, I mean, we've only been around for 1.5 years now as a nonprofit. We already have 5,000 ambassadors. We currently have 160 parents whose children are in psychosis, who are in mental hospitals. We have a group for them. We provide prevention, education, awareness in the way of graphics and videos and toolkits and webinars and books and trainings and everything that we can do. We have now certified trainers. We're getting a little army out there, kind of like a Mothers Against Drunk Driving for marijuana, to really educate the community about the harms and to help parents understand, hey, it's not a benign substance. And if your child is using it, they will be harmed. We don't know in what way. They all are harmed. There are consequences for every youth. There is no safe level of THC that is safe for the developing mind. We don't know which will be psychotic. They estimate 1 in 20 teens who use these high potency marijuana products at a high frequency in a young age will have delusion, psychosis, paranoia. Sadly, if they continue having cannabis induced psychosis, CIP incidents, it can convert into permanent schizophrenia and bipolar. So the message is, do not ever provide your child with marijuana. Do not listen to the industry narrative that it is safe, that it will help your child's stress level and anxiety. Indeed, the opposite is true. It will make it far worse. And if they already have a proclivity toward mental illness and self-harm, especially, we know there's a dramatic increase in suicidality in those individuals who use marijuana. That just came out from the National Institutes of Health. They can go read it on the National Institute of Drug Abuse, NIDA website. They confirmed 280,000 young adults were studied, age 18, and they, right on the NIH website, says marijuana causes suicidal ideation, suicide attempt, and indeed, sadly, so suicide, regardless of whether someone was already experiencing depression. So don't buy into it. Do not use it yourself. We know there is a huge increase. If a mother uses marijuana, their child is 80% more likely to use it themselves. If a father uses it, a child is 90% more likely. And unlike you, their brain is not ready to take it. Yours may be formed, and I don't get into adult use. It's your brain, it's your business, do what you want. But we must protect the children, and it's the responsibility of the parent to do that by modeling appropriate behavior, and make sure that your child stops. If they're already addicted, please reach out to us at johnny'sambassadors.org, and we can provide resources and intervention assistance to get them into rehab and get them to stop.
It's so important that the stigma that comes along with this, it's still pretty intense. That I've got a kid and we just have really got to break that stigma. It affects all across all generations. And
we've got to talk about it. I'm talking about it. I get hate mail every day. I'm sure you can imagine, because I'm speaking against the marijuana industry. They don't like me at all. And I refuse to be silent. I refuse to be shamed. I am not a perfect parent, but I was a damn good one. And I did everything that I could. And my child is still gone. And it's preventable. We have to talk about it. We have to come out of the shadows. And when I started talking about it, we had 9 hours of testimony of other parents rising up and talking about how these products have harmed their children. And the more we can get a critical mass of people willing to speak up, the more we're going to make an impact. And we've got to do this, because as soon as it becomes legal nationwide, which I hope doesn't happen, but probably will, we're going to be needed more than ever. And you think it took 60 years for tobacco for them to finally go, oh yeah, I guess it is harmful. We are going to lose generations of young people to psychosis and suicide. You watch. We must act. It is critically important.
The recovery starts, Laura, with connection. It's not really not doing the drugs or whatever. And this is a whole.
Got to talk to your kid.
Yep. And it's a whole family thing. A lot of parents, the stuff, you mentioned earlier, you wanted to tape your son to the wall. Well, obviously that couldn't happen.
I wish.
But there are some things that can be done, and there are people out there that are willing to help.
There's a lot of help, a lot more people understanding, a lot more clinics, medical centers, doctors. Here in Colorado, everybody knows about cannabis-induced psychosis. If you come to the emergency room vomiting, they're going to say, how much weed have you used and what are you dabbing?
So if you're a parent and you can connect to somebody like you on your website or wherever, you can find people that have done this sort of stuff, that have been there. They know kind of what worked for them, or maybe what didn't work for them. But we're not alone. We do not have to be isolated or alone in this anymore. And I just applaud what you're doing and how you're doing it, and providing that ability for people to be connected. One size does not fit all. Church works for some, Al-Anon, Nor-Anon, those might work for others.
For marijuana. Yeah.
Marijuana, all of those all those tools work, and you are one of those things that some people can get involved and do that. So
yes, we welcome for anybody to be an ambassador. There's all kinds of ways to join. Even just sharing our social media posts is a great way to spread the education and the message. And if they go to johnny'sambassadors.org and just put /join, all kinds of ways to get involved and to become an ambassador. You know, we're sharing Johnny's warning that marijuana ruined my mind and my life. And every time I talk with teens at schools or prevention conferences, more people hear the message, heed it, understand it, get on board, and start educating others. And I think that it's important for us to be able to talk about why these new designer marijuana drugs are so extreme, and to talk to people when they just casually pass it off. It's just weed. It's not just weed anymore.
It's not your grandmother's marijuana anymore.
No, it's not.
Well, Gina and I really believe in what you're doing. Please let us know as you go forward how you help you roll out stuff or do what we can do. I believe in what you do. It's important information.
Yeah, in fact, she has in her notes, in my notes on her, Johnny's Ambassadors Dabbing Walk to raise awareness. And so in September, if you want to come on and give a plug and talk about that and try and get more people involved, we are here for you.
Awesome. Yeah, we have that every month in Suicide Month. Every year it's Suicide Month, which is September. In 2022, it'll be on September 18th. And we have armies of people all over the U.S. walking and forming teams and working to reduce youth marijuana use. So we'd love for anybody to join our movement, especially if you have a family member who's been harmed or you yourself have been harmed and want to share your story. We would love to include you.
We'll bring that up to some local organizations here. We're in touch with a few and see what they got going on.
We got a big...
Oh, great. You guys can do a team. You can name it anything you want.
We got a big suicide walk that goes over here that we're involved in because of our thing with
your own personal stories. Well, Gina and Vince, I just thank you for the opportunity to share Johnny's warning and his story, and hope this reaches one person listening. And please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk with you.
Well, thank you very much.
And for those of you who missed it, all of this will be in the description to the podcast, all of these links and how to get in touch with Johnny's Ambassadors and any of the contact information.
I want to say, thank you. I want to say real quick that I said when I started this, I was skeptical, and we have trouble with me talking. I before we even started, I said, Vince, you might have to take the lead. And I think I jumped in more often than I normally do because I was so intrigued with the story and with what I didn't know about marijuana.
Those of you out there on the YouTube land, when you watch this video, I'm the editor. I'm going to leave it in. I got shushed a couple of times.
You did.
Let's go.
And that's okay, because I probably needed it, because I can get wound up myself. Well, gosh, we just keep meeting the neatest people that are working. I feel like I've just made friends over and over again. And Laura, I feel like I've made another thing. And if I ever make it out to Colorado here in a little bit, maybe we'll tour some of those sites. You can educate this older addict on a little bit what's going on. And then, of course, if you want to introduce me to the governor, you can do that too.
Let's do it. Go on a field trip. Come on over. I'll show you around.
Yeah.
All right. That was good. I got to speak. I didn't get to speak up. I was so excited you couldn't shut me. Well, I was being good, but
you shut me down. You know, there's so many people out there that say, Vince, shut up, let Gina talk. Well, it's getting changed.
I'm getting confident.
Yes. Johnny's Ambassadors. For those of you, break the stigma and the isolation. Get in touch with people that are going through the same thing you're going through.